That brings me into wedding portraits.
Okay.
So all of what you just said brings us right into that, because a lot of times the couple, like the bridesmaids or the groomsmen is helping out with that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So you got the maid or matron of honor fluffing the dress,
complicates things,
holding flowers, all of those kind of things, mm-hmm. And a lot of times the question that you get is, can we go to the cocktail hour now? How many times do we hear that throughout the day?
Not me.
And that's what I was about to say. So you have the assistant there that's helping with all that stuff. So after you're finished with them, you're just like, all right, y'all can go.
Yep.
How long does it take for you, or on average, to do family photos and portraits with the couple and with the bridal party?
Okay. So perfect scenario. If they're doing a first look, which I generally say, it's your day, you do you, but I generally prefer it. Not for me, but for the couple, because it's less stressful.
Yep.
We have more time, and therefore they can actually enjoy cocktail hour.
Right.
So, but if we do have a first look, basically in a perfect world, if the couple does care about their portraits, I would say first look in portraits about an hour.
Okay.
45 minutes would be the minimum that I would really want.
Yep.
An hour basically allows me that creative space and time to be able to make some of those more dramatic shots.
Yep.
But if we have less time and they really don't care about those, that's fine. We can get done in 30 or 45 if we really need to.
Yep.
So I'd say 30 is definitely bare minimum for like where I don't want to go any less than that, because I feel like quality suffers at that point. 45 is like, you can usually get the usual with a dramatic or two mixed in.
Yeah.
An hour is like, I can give you the full gamut of all my skill and feel like I can give you multiple locations and all that.
Yep.
Wedding party, it depends on the size of the wedding party. That's a huge factor.
It is.
Because, if you have 3 on each side, great. Mm-hmm. We can knock that out in 15, 20 minutes.
Quick, right.
No problem at all.
But if it's 8 on each side.
Totally different story.
Totally different
and
story.
Also depends on how much do you care about wedding party photos. So like I ask all my couples, like on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you care about your portraits? How much do you care about wedding party?
Right.
And so some couples want like a lot of candid, interactive wedding party shots.
Yep.
That's great. And I love them, but they also take time because I have to get this large group of people to listen, get organized, all of that stuff.
So true.
So that's a component of it.
Right.
Or like for myself, I do like the group spotlight photos where we light each one of them up.
Yep.
That takes a good chunk of time there.
It does.
And so like I'm doing it this Friday for a wedding. And there's like 6 or 7 on each side. So like it's a decent sized group. So I'm like, I need 15 minutes for that photo alone.
Yep.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
And if they're like, some couples go like, yeah, that's fine. We value that photo. So we're willing to do it. And other couples go like, no, we could go doing other stuff with that. I'm like, that's cool. I don't care.
Right.
I just want you to know that this takes some time.
Yeah.
So wedding party, it could be 15 minutes. It could be, I've never done longer than 45 because at that point, we lose the wedding party.
Right. Yeah. They are, you totally lose them.
Yeah. That's why it's also helpful to have a second photographer, because you can divide and conquer.
Yep.
So that's just another reason to have a second, because guys go on one side, girls on another, and then therefore
come together for the group, the big group. Yeah. Yep.
So, and that can drastically, so like, it's like, if we have a tight timeline, but we have a second, that can save us a good 15, 20 minutes right there.
Oh, for sure.
So that's something I think people don't think about as well, is like, you might not actually need as much wedding day coverage if you get a second photographer, because that could help cut down on some of those times like that.
So true.
So in a way, it could end up saving you money in the end, you know, or just actually equal out. Either way, it's not going to cost you more in the end. It's actually going to probably balance out.
Oh, yeah.
But wedding party could go 45 maybe. Family, again, depends on how many combinations they want.
Yeah.
I tell my couples 10 to 12 combos max.
Right.
Any more than that, you're exhausted and your family hates you.
Yep.
Your
cheeks hurt from smiling.
Yep.
Yeah.
By the 10th one, you're like, there's a thumbnail right there. There you go. It's like, no, everybody gets worn out at that point.
Yeah.
And also I'm like, just stick to the main combinations, don't go into, you know,
Cousins
boyfriend's girlfriend's second cousin twice removed, you know, all that stuff. So 15 to 30, we usually allot 30 minutes. And we usually get them done in 15 to 20.
Right.
So again, leaving extra time, making sure that we have that breathing room there. That's really important.
So are you saying for bridal portraits and family portraits and the couple's portraits, an hour total for everything?
No.
All right, so 1 hour for the couple's portraits, and then
about a half an hour
for the wedding party,
half hour for family.
Half hour for family. So 2 hours
about
in total.
2 hours.
Okay. All right. I had another photographer on. He was like, 90 minutes would be, you know, what I would ask for, you know. It for me, you know, an hour, I'm like, man, that is like a lifetime for me. But you know,
I build my couple's timelines.
It depends on how much creative stuff they want to do.
Right.
Because that stuff takes time.
And I do have wedding days where literally they're just like, we really don't care about all that. We just want you to document. I'm like, cool. And they're like, so you have 10 minutes for photos with the two of us, like pose portraits. I'm like, cool. Like, I'm actually not upset because it takes all the pressure off of me.
It does.
I'm like, cool. I will just document all day, and that's what you get.
And you know that this is what you're going to get.
Right.
You know, you can't come back and say you didn't get enough because this is what we talked about.
Exactly.
You know, so
I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
And I've had usually once a year, I have a wedding where they very much want hands off, very little portraits. And I'm like, whew, I needed that day mixed into my year.
Yeah.
The creative burnout is a real thing. I don't think couples realize it's just like we are staring at a blank slate and we have to decide, do we go here, 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 or here? What lighting conditions do we want to work with? Do we want to bring out off-camera lighting? How do we want to pose you for this? How is the couple feeling in that moment? Like there's so many different things that we are considering.
Some people can't pose, you know, and all of that. So that takes time as well because by the time they get warmed up, 15 minutes then went by already. You know, so
exactly.
That's
and then they might just be like, we're done. It's like, oh, okay, sure. And I just tell them, I'm like, hey, I just want to make sure you don't come back and tell me I didn't do enough portraits with you. You know, if you're happy, hey, I just want you guys to enjoy your day. I always tell couples that's the most important thing. Don't get me wrong. I want to make some amazing photos for you, but most importantly is I want you to enjoy your day.
That's the most important thing.
That's the most important part.
Because that's what it's about. You know, that's what it's about.
It's not about us.
It's not about us.
No.
You know, we're just there to create the memories. It's all about you having fun and enjoying your day. You know,
I would argue they create the memories. We capture them.
Yeah. I would agree. Any unforeseen circumstances that you've been in? Do you have like a story like, you know, weather conditions, you know, a thunderstorm came in or the venue said that you can't go up near the altar or something like that. Anything that you've been in where you can tell a story to a couple to say, hey, this is what happened and this is how I handled it.
Believe it or not, I really haven't had that many crazy situations.
Okay.
The one crazy one I can remember, and I mean, the whole situation was crazy to begin with.
Okay.
Main photographer ended up having a serious medical condition.
Oh, man.
About 48 hours before the wedding or so, and was just like, hey, I need you to step in. And then they moved the second up to the primary. So I became the second photographer then. And so I was just like, okay, like just walking into this day, like, all right, I'll just, you know, do my normal thing and go with the flow. And everything throughout the day was all good. We get to family photos after the ceremony. They did not do a first look. We're doing the family photos. And all of a sudden, about maybe five photos in or so, the groom yells, I can't effing do this.
What?
And runs out of the group of family photos. And I'm like, he just said the vows and now he's saying he can't do this. What is going on?
What?
We run into the bathroom and we find him in there and the man is literally like turning beet red. It was hot out. It was very hot. And we look down and we look at his finger. His ring finger is purple. The ring was way too tight. And all the heat was basically causing it to swell. And he was in excruciating pain. And unfortunately, it was titanium.
Oh, no.
So he spent all of the cocktail hour and 2 hours of the reception going to the ER, going to a fire station, and everywhere that they could, and they couldn't do very much about it.
Wow. Because that stuff is like tough to cut.
You can't.
Yeah.
And it was so on there that like they couldn't get close without, like his finger was wrapping over the ring. It was so bad. And so therefore they were like, we can't cut her. We're going to cut your finger. And so he just had to deal with it. So they drugged him up with all kinds of painkillers.
Yeah.
And I will never forget, my favorite photo from that wedding is him on the dance floor when he came right back. And he was loopy at this point because I mean they gave him some good stuff, like Oxy or something like that. And he comes on the dance floor and he's just right, like his hands up in the air. And so you just look and everything looks normal and you see his finger there and it's just bright purple. And he's just like, yeah, having the best time. And I was just like, oh, this poor guy. He really tried to be the best trooper he could.
Right.
I really felt for him. You could tell he was in a world of pain. So grooms, make sure that your ring is not too tight. Go looser. Honestly, I typically wear the rubber ones half the time because you just don't want to risk it.
Yeah.
So I always tell couples, if you at any point, especially on a hot day, if you feel like your rings are getting too tight, take them off.
Yeah.
It is not worth the risk.
We need them anyway to do photos.
Yeah, I was going to say. Because the worst thing is, like, at the end of the night, I've had some couples just be like, I can't get them off. And I'm like, okay, like, sorry, I can't do the, a ring shot for you then.
Man.
So obviously not the end of the world, not the most important shot, but it's definitely something I tell people just for comfort wise, just to be mindful of just being in touch with how your body is reacting throughout the day. Cause it's easy to get caught up in stuff and not realize like all of a sudden, like, oh wow, like I stubbed my toe earlier. Now it's really hurting. And then you look down and you're like, oh, I probably broke my toe. Like, things like that can happen because you're on that like euphoric high of the day.
Yeah.
So just try every now and then to get in touch with like, I know it sounds woo woo, but like get in touch with like your body of like how it's doing. Like, oh, you probably need to drink some water. You probably need some food. Like, don't lose sight of that because you will pay for it at some point. Yeah. And you don't want that to be when like it's the high point of your day and then you can't even be a part of it. So
I had a groom, not the groom, but one of the groomsmen passed out right in the middle of the vows. He just passed out. And I was like, and I was the bride was coming down. So I was getting her, she's coming down, and I heard everybody say, and I turned around and he passed out.
As the bride's coming down the aisle.
As the bride's coming down the aisle.
Way to steal the show, man.
I'm just like, wow. And I think they said like he must have locked his legs or something that they said. And I'm just like, man.
Gotta stay loose, people.
But yeah, man, you definitely have to be careful with that stuff, because if you're not, like you said, you can really hurt yourself. If you're not drinking enough water and you're not hydrated, you can really hurt yourself, man. Like literally you can hurt yourself.
Yeah. That's why my assistants, we carry around water. And like we force the couple to drink like at least once an hour, just to be like, look, you have not had anything to drink in over an hour. Yeah. Like, you need to have something in you. I always tell them, I'm like, you're beautiful, but you are no good to me if you are passed out or in a hospital bed. Yeah. Like, no matter how good you look, I can only make that look so good. I would much prefer you stand on your own and look beautiful in front of this gorgeous venue and all your friends and family, rather than a bunch of doctors and nurses at a hospital. Like,
because I'll photograph that too.
I'll photograph it too, but I'm sure you don't want that memory.
Yeah, you don't want that. Yeah. So being on time, how important, if you was to tell couples about being on time, how important is that? You have some weddings that run behind, and weddings that run behind, if they have a wedding planner, the planner usually does a great job of getting things back on track.
Absolutely.
But you can tell couples, like, what would be the thing that you would tell them and say, hey, you need to be on time because of this, this, and this. And when you're not, this could happen.
All right. Hot take. Ready?
Okay.
So this is for weddings that don't have a planner. Okay. It's the photographer's fault.
Oh, okay.
I said what I said.
Okay.
So.
Okay. I'm ready for this one.
Now, granted, this is my take.
Okay.
I create the timelines for my couples.
Okay.
If they have a planner, of course, I loop them in. We work on it together, but usually we're on the same page because we work together multiple times.
Yes.
Now, if they don't have a planner, no matter what, we're having a very in-depth conversation about the wedding timeline.
Absolutely.
Because let's be real, our couples typically ask us, when should hair and makeup start?
Yep.
That's a very common question.
That's true. That's so true.
And so right then and there, that is your opportunity to either set yourself up for success or failure.
Yep.
Because what you tell them essentially is going to make or break your day.
Okay.
And if you tell them the right timing, and also to make sure that the bride does not go last, if you do that, you're usually going to be in a decent spot. Now, obviously, we cannot control certain vendors, especially hair and makeup. Hair and makeup, I love you, but please stick to the schedule. I get it if somebody's a little, off or wants a redo, but like, hey, they got to wait then till later.
Yes.
Don't redo them right then on the spot.
Okay.
So I always tell all my brides, you do not go last.
Right.
That is one of the biggest things.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I would rather photograph you all done up in your hair and makeup, sipping on a mimosa, rather than you stressing out as you go through your phone and try to call and text everyone because hair and makeup's running late and you're freaking out about things.
Yeah.
So if there is no planner, typically, and again, everybody can take this differently, but I feel like it does fall back on us.
Okay.
That's something I willingly take on.
Yep.
Because also I want to see the day be successful.
Yeah.
So therefore, this is, it's extra work for me.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it ensures that I get to do my job to the best of my ability.
Okay.
Rather than be thrown to the wolves and given whatever I get.
No, we definitely, if it's no planner, I'm involved with creating a timeline as well. My question for you is, you said the bride don't go last. Now, in my 10 years and almost maybe 11, the bride usually goes last on hair and makeup day. What is the reason that you say for the bride not to go last?
There's a few reasons, actually.
Okay.
First and foremost is just, let's be real, hair and makeup does typically run behind.
Yes.
I mean,
and shout out to the planners that was on both Tiffany's. They talked about that, but go ahead.
Like, I will say most of the ones I work with are pretty solid.
Yep.
But there are definitely some that take longer for whatever reason.
Yep.
And if the bride goes last and everybody else is running behind, the bride is behind then.
Okay.
So that's the first reason, is just, if anything gets pushed by a little bit, the bride gets pushed.
Okay.
If the bride gets pushed, everything else throughout the rest of the day gets pushed as well.
Okay.
And what happens is, of course, that loses photo time there.
Yep.
So right then and there, that's your opportunity to just cut that out right then and there.
Right. So should the bride go
middle?
Middle? Okay.
Middle.
All right. Middle. Not first, but middle, because... And I think the reason why
middle end, like, I just don't want her going last or second to last.
Right.
I want her at least a few before the last people go. Because, like I said, if anybody else gets off, it's okay if she's in the middle then, because if the other bridesmaids or moms or stuff after that, if they're not ready, then that's not as big of a deal. The bride. We still have the bride, and we can do other photos. So we can keep the timeline moving.
Yeah.
The other thing, I hate to say it, but I've heard this from hair and makeup artists themselves. Think about it this way. Would you go see, like, let's see, a specialist for, let's say, a surgery you're having?
Yep.
Do you want to be the first of the day?
I got you.
Or do you want to be the last of the day?
I got you.
Right?
I got you. Yeah.
You want to be the first or second, or you want to be in the beginning part of the day?
In the middle. Yeah.
You don't want to be at the tail end of the day because they're exhausted from everything else that they've already done.
Yep.
So you might not get their best.
Yeah.
And again, not saying everyone is like that. Some are super consistent throughout. But I have seen some makeup artists, like, they're starting at 5 a.m. and, they're finishing up makeup at, let's say 2 o'clock.
Yep.
That's a really long day.
It is.
And by the end of that, like, imagine your eyes looking closely at everything, the light constantly changing. Like, all of a sudden, things are going to get a little bit off.
Yeah.
And so I would much rather have you be in that middle ground there.
Yeah.
And that way, there's some consistency. They're warmed up, but they're not burned out.
Right.
So that's right where I like them in there.
I always hear makeup artists say the reason why they want the bride to go last, or the bride to say for freshness.
But they can touch up at the end.
Yep.
So that's what I always say whenever a bride's like, well, my hair and makeup artist wants me to go last. Yep. And I'm like, can't they do a touch up at the end?
Yeah.
So like, okay, right before they go, just have them come over, do just, hey, quick little touch up, make sure everything looks good.
Yeah.
Takes 5-10 minutes at most.
Yeah.
And let's be real, even if the bride does go last, once she gets into her dress, they typically do a touch up at that point anyway.
Yep.
So it's just like, we're doing multiple touch ups no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
So why not just have the bride ready to go for safety's sake?
Yeah. And
then do the touch up when you would be doing it anyway.
Yeah.
So
you make a good point. you make a great point. That's the reason why you hire somebody with experience.
Yeah.
Because they know this kind of stuff.
Right. It's taking a lot of time.
It takes a lot of time to learn this stuff, So, but go ahead.
My timeline meetings are like a freaking hour.
Yeah,
they are.
Oh yeah.
Because like I literally am like, cool, hair and makeup at this time. Here's when I get there. Here's when you should be in the chair. Here's when you should be finished. Like here's when you're chilling. Here's when we get into the dress. We're going into every minute of the day. Because also
that walking down a hall that takes time. You getting into the car. All right, well, it's going to be from 8:40 to 8:45. We're going to do this. I'm like, well, it's going to take you 10 minutes to get to the car and to round up everybody. So you may want to say 20 minutes, Exactly. So
that's the stuff that it's whenever I hear photographers talk about what went wrong on a day, it's not the photographer's fault, but they could have potentially prevented it by talking about all this stuff in advance.
Yeah. If they don't have a planner.
Right.
Okay.
It's like you said, like perfect one is travel.
Yeah.
A couple's like, all right, take 17 minutes. So we'll plan for 20. I'm like, no
way.
No, we're planning for 30 or 40.
Yes, sir.
And they're just like, that's too much time. I'm like, it's not.
Nope.
I promise you.
Yep.
I said, and think about this. If we are ahead, what's the problem? They're like, nothing. We could actually get started with this earlier.
Exactly.
Perfect. Well, what happens if we're later for that? Oh, well, then that would cut into this, and this.
Yes.
Okay. So what would you rather have? Would you rather lose time for the important parts of your day that you have planned? Or would you rather be ahead of schedule, sipping on a drink, and being able to keep your timeline moving as you originally planned?
Right.
Your choice.
Right. No, that makes sense, man. That makes sense. Couples, this is why you hire people. You hire your photographers and vendors and videographers and all that stuff. You hire somebody with experience because of all of what we're talking about here. You hear all the great insight he's given. It's because he has the experience. He knows about this stuff. That's the reason why wedding photography costs so much.
I always tell couples, like, ultimately, it's your decision as to how you want your day to run.
Yeah.
I'm just going to tell you, like, hey, this is my experience. These are my suggestions. If you want to take them, fantastic.
Yeah.
If you don't, that's fine. Just don't come back to me, saying like, oh, what happened with this?
Yeah.
And I'm like, remember that conversation we had about that? Well, that was that happening. And like, oh, yeah, maybe we should listen to you on that. I'm like,
right.
Look, I'm not looking for handouts. I'm not looking for kudos. Like, I just want you to have the best day possible.
Yep.
And that's why I'm just letting you know all of this information. And that way you can do with it what you wish.
Yeah.
Most of the time the couples take it, and therefore the day ends up running really smoothly because of it.
Yeah.
Not to say, trust me, I've had my fair share of tough days here and there.
Oh, I'm sure.
You plan for it and you're just like, okay, everything is hitting the fan today. All right. But we roll with it. We find a way to get things back on track usually. Yep. When somebody doesn't listen to anything I have to say, that's usually when the day is just like, cool. Yeah. We had 5 minutes for photos with you, and this didn't happen. This didn't happen. You cut your list down here, and that was your day.
Yeah.
And they're just like, yeah, we probably should have listened more. And I'm like, I don't want to say I told you so.
Right.
But unfortunately, that's where we are. We can't change that after the fact. So that's what I always tell people, like, whatever you do, just be okay. I hate to say it, but dealing with this for the rest of your life, because that is how that day is. It's one take. And we can't go back and change it.
That's right.
Whatever you decide on, that is how you will remember your day.
Oh, yeah.
And I hope it's the way that you want.
Yeah.
Not the way I want. I hope it's the way that you want, whatever that is.
Yeah. No awards going to come out of this, maybe.
Nope.
No, that's awesome, man. That is great, man. we've been talking about some great stuff. Just one or two more.
Sure, yeah, go for
one
it.
or two more. Any trends that you've seen that people are doing now that you're just like, oh, this is the new thing? Anything that you've seen people doing now?
Yeah, the direct flash thing. It pains me. It really does.
My daughter, she wanted this like old camera that we used back in, I don't know, back in the early 2000s with the direct flash. Yep. This is what I want. I'm just like, nobody really wants that. No, that's the look I want. So I'm just like, is this what's happening now? But go ahead.
And it's not so much because of like, oh, it's not good flash or anything like that.
Right.
It really truly comes down to the fact of I'm okay with direct flash when there's intentionality behind it.
Yes.
Intentional direct flash, cool, because there's a reason behind it. It's done to achieve a certain look or aesthetic.
Correct.
I get that.
Yeah.
Like, if that is truly your style for your work, that's one thing. Like, okay, sure. But I've seen a lot of people just start doing it all the time just because it is the trendy thing.
Yep.
When that wasn't how their work used to be. And I'm like, don't get me wrong, everybody can change their mind and change their style. But it's just like, and then you see them slowly start changing out of it when it becomes not trendy. And I'm like, okay, so that was just a fade,
right?
A phase that you went through. But really, the number one thing I just tell people is, I mainly stick to it on the dance floor. I do direct flash on the dance floor sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes for the cool shutter drag stuff. It's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
Let's be real. Everybody's drunk. It's a super dark environment. Like, it's fine to do stuff during situations like that. I feel. I don't think direct flash is good in general for a lot of situations because also it's not flattering at all.
Okay.
I always like to say, think about how your couple will look back on this photo, let's say 50 years from now.
Yes.
Will they say, wow, we looked like so good, so amazing. I love how we looked in these photos. Or they're going to say, wow, that was really a trendy thing at that time. And all of our photos look like this now because of that fact.
Wow. Can't take that back.
Right. Like, getting technical with photography stuff, let's be real. If you take a photo of a bride using direct flash versus doing like butterfly or Rembrandt lighting or something like that, that has highlights and shadows and really shapes the face.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, if you took a survey, every single bride would take the Rembrandt or butterfly or some type of beauty lighting on them over the direct flash.
Absolutely.
That's because with direct flash, there is no highlights and shadows. It's
all
just
even. All just even. Yep.
And like, again, that can work in certain situations. But if we're talking about actual portraits or important moments, we need our eyes see in highlights and shadows.
Yes.
Like, we have all these lights set up here because it's creating highlights and shadows for us.
Absolutely.
That's how our eyes naturally see. So when we see direct flash photos, it actually kind of messes with your mind because they're just like, okay, like, where's the shadow? Like, where's the definition in the face? And like I said, it's just not very flattering. Like, when people are already drunk on the dance floor, doesn't matter. They're already not flattering as it is. You can't really be. It is what it is. That's why I love the dance floor, though.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about like actual moments or portraits, I get it for maybe a few stylized ones, but anything more than that, I feel like is just truly not understanding good photography. And that's my hot take on that. It's just, I feel like it will look dated. And if you look back throughout all of time, there has always been highlights and shadows in photography.
Always.
And that is because that's how the human eye sees. That's how everything is in the world. And so therefore, we need to have that in our work. And I think people will probably look back on it and be like, yep, that was a phase and it was cool. And it will still always stick around in some aspect, like I said, because it does have its place.
Yeah.
I just hope people use it in a cautious manner.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't have a problem with doing it at certain points. Just use it cautiously. And if you see a photographer doing it all the time, I would look deeper into all of their work,
the full
especially
gallery
flash
that
work,
we talked about,
and really see what's going on. And if they do know how to handle other situations in different ways.
Yeah. That's just like how the, just to piggyback on that a little bit, the filters that everybody was using at one time.
Yep. The sepia and
the filters, man. And, I had some couples ask me about that stuff, and I was just like, no, you know, and I don't want you doing that.
I went through my phase with that too. Yep,
you know, I don't put filters on my work. You know, if you want to do that, then you can do that, but don't
post it. Don't see it.
Don't post it and then tag me in it, you know. And then when you look back at this stuff now, it looks dated.
Yep.
You know,
you can immediately date those photos and be like, oh, you got married between these years.
Yep. Exactly.
And that's the big thing, is that I never want somebody to be able to look at my work and go like, oh, that was definitely taken between these years because it had the Dutch tilt.
Yep.
You know, like that was another thing. You know, it's like, there are these trendy things that come and go, and they date the photos. Yeah. And granted, let's be real, everything will be dated to some aspect.
Oh, for sure.
But let's be real also, you can look at photos from 50 years ago and they're timeless. Yeah. They still hold up to today. Yep. And that's because they have the good basics of photography. Yep. There's highlights, shadows, good composition, good moments.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, if you have those things, you have a good photo.
You have a good photo.
So let's stop complicating it. Yeah. And let's just make really good, clean work for our couples, that way they won't look back and be like, well, yep, I can remember exactly when we got married because that was the style right then. And we went with somebody who was trendy because that was the thing.
Yep.
You know, that's the biggest, I feel like, insult to like a photographer, is like being able to date their work. Yeah. You know, and granted, we've all gone through it to an extent, but once you've been in it for a while, you know, you shouldn't be able to date a photographer's work. You should just be like, wow, they're really consistent and they do these things really well.
Consistency, man.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, for sure, man. All right, one more.
All right.
And then we'll end it. The last one is expectations.
Okay.
How long should a couple expect to get their gallery? You know, some people, I had one photographer once said, some people want the gallery before we even do the wedding.
That's a great way to put it. I love it.
But how long should, you know, after the wedding is done, how should your gallery be the next day? Should it be 3 days? Should it be 3 weeks? Should it be 6 weeks, 8 weeks? What is the expectations like for us photographers? And I know the answer, but I always ask this question.
There are no expectations, right? Like, because that's the beauty of it all, is every photographer can run it differently.
Correct.
However they want to do it.
Yeah.
So that's what I always tell couples, like, ask up front.
Yeah.
Like on my initial phone call with couples, that's one of the things I go into is like, it's going to take this long for your photos to be ready.
Okay.
And that way they know right up front.
Yeah.
And I'm reminding them throughout the process too, this is how long it will take for your photos to be ready.
Yeah.
So for myself, I tell couples 2 months.
Yeah.
And I'm usually between 6 weeks to 8 weeks, somewhere in that window there.
It's about the going rate though.
I think that's pretty standard overall. Yeah. I do think it has sped up a little bit over the past few years.
Yeah.
I think I've seen some people go from the 2 months down to 1 month, or the 3 months down to 2. I think we've been seeing more of that.
Yeah.
But it really depends on a lot of factors. And mainly the big one is, how many weddings does that photographer take on?
Just about to say that.
That's
how
the big
busy
one.
is the photographer?
Yeah.
You know,
that's the big one.
Yeah.
And also really how much post-production work do they do?
Yep.
Some do a lot, some do a little. There's no right or wrong answer. It just depends.
Yep.
For myself, I have a lot of post-production work.
Yeah.
Because of the lighting I do, my assistant is typically in the photo when I take it.
Yep.
Because it gives great lighting.
Yep.
But therefore, I also have to remove my assistant from those photos.
Correct.
So because of that fact, that ends up taking a good chunk of time.
Oh, yes.
And the photos that I submit for awards or that win awards, typically I might be spending up to 30 minutes on a single photo.
Absolutely.
30 minutes on a single photo.
They need to be superb. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and again, I'm not editing them to win awards. Don't get me twisted there.
Yeah.
You know, but it's just like, I know this is one of the big photos from that couple's day, and I want to make it just look absolutely perfect.
Absolutely.
Because I know it's probably going to go on the cover of their album. It's going to go as a big wall art piece in their home.
Yep.
Like, I know that that's going to be one of the shots that they love.
Yeah.
And also, if I'm posting on social media, I want to make sure it looks good for all that stuff too.
Yeah.
But I give my couples a sneak peek the next day. So I'll send them a photo or two the next day.
Yep.
Just because I know everybody's anxious. They want to see something. So
Yeah.
it's like, here's one or two.
Yep.
I'll hold you over a little bit. And then I will kind of drip some more out over those next 2 months.
Right.
So I'll drip out one like a few weeks in, another few weeks. So that way, by the time the gallery actually gets to them, they've seen maybe five or so photos.
Yeah.
Because I do truly want them to
be in awe,
experience them together, see it all, and see it also as a whole work. You know, like the hero, the signature shots, they're great and all. But they don't also tell a story and connect everything together. Right. So for me, a big part is just them being able to see the sequence of events. And be taken right back to that moment. So like if the bride does a first look with her dad, one photo can't encapsulate that entire feeling that she had in that moment. Because obviously there's the moment as he opens the door, as he comes in for the first time, as he goes to hug her, look at her. So like there might be a series of 5 photos there. And I need all those to look extremely the same and consistent with the editing in order for them to have that same impact. And so that sometimes requires a lot of work. And I always tell couples, if it's ready earlier, I'll get it to you earlier. There's no reason for me to hold back because I want to get it off my plate. Trust me. No photographer wants to sit on your work and just be like, no, it's done. No. And it's just going to sit on my computer. Like no photographer's doing that. No. But we are just making sure that everything is consistent because once we hand over that gallery to you, like we can't get it back. Like that's it. Like it's out there in the universe. It's out there. We also, just like your wedding day, there's no do-overs. Like, sure, we could re-edit and send it back to you. But it's out there already. It's out there. And let's be real, you're probably not going to change it out or anything like that. And let's be real, we're not going to re-edit it either. You know, it's one of those things where we want to make sure that like I will edit it and usually take a few days to walk away from it. Because I want to have fresh eyes, look through another wedding or just be away from the computer, sit down and then go. And sometimes I'll go like, what was I thinking? Man,
I thought that was only me. I'm like, why did I make that so the temperature so warm?
I'm like, I turned her into an Oompa Loompa. Like, no. So like, that's the other thing is like eye fatigue is a real thing. Like when you look at the same thing again and again for hours on end and you're like this far away from your screen. Like you step away and you're like, whoa, wow, my eyes are like really tired and they start shifting a little bit based on that. So we just want to make sure that when we hit send that we're like, okay, my name is on that and I am proud of that in every way possible. It's not to keep you guys waiting. It is always the best intention of, I want you guys to look at them and just be like, there is not a darn thing I would change because it's so good. Right. And if if like I had one bride say that one time, I was just like, oh, that is the best thing you could ever hear. She's like, it's perfect. It's absolute perfection. I'm like, good, because I worked on it 50 freaking hours. And that's the other thing, man, with it's not just the 8 or 10 hours we there. We are in the background. You there another 10 hours, 12, 15 hours editing. And Calling's Colin, like on an average wedding for me, I'm usually anywhere from 8 to 10,000 photos. That's the same here. And it's like going through that also, like I have to go through it in stages and I have to go back through again and again. So it's not just a one and done. It's not like boom, 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 make all my decisions and I'm good to go. Like I know some people are like that and I'm envious, but I always tell people like, I literally control how you remember this moment for the rest of your life. Because think about it. If I deliver, let's say 20 photos of a bride and her dad doing their first look. And some of them are so close together compared to as delivering 5 really uniquely distinct photos. There's a big difference in experience and how you remember things that way. It is. And the 5, I think, will have a much bigger impact on you rather than you getting overwhelmed trying to look through the 20 that all look so similar with those 5 mixed in. So that's the other thing I try to tell couples is like, I want to give you every photo possible, but I also don't want to water down your memories. I want you to really just see this is the peak moment of each of these little moments within it. And that way you remember how you felt. Rather than like, oh, why is that little one in there? That was not good. And then next thing you know, you're moving on to something else. I want them to have maximum impact rather than just like, oh yeah, it's a cute little series. Like cute little series, like you were bawling, he hugged you, he was crying. Like those are really impactful moments. But when they get mixed in with the other stuff, it just waters it all down.
So quality over quantity, really.
Quality over quantity.
Yeah.
I mean, I always tell people like, look, you're gonna get 500 to 1,000 photos more than likely. Like,
Yeah.
you're gonna have plenty of photos.
We'll have plenty of photos, yeah.
You know, but I would rather make sure that, you know, every one of those photos was chosen for a reason.
Yep.
And not just because I was lazy and just like, I don't want to make the decision. I'll let them decide.
Nah.
You know, and like, granted, there are certain times where like, if you are making a bunch of different facial expressions and I know that you kind of like each of them, I'll give you those 3.
Yeah.
Like that's fine.
Yeah.
But especially for moments, like if we're rapid firing through a moment, like I'm not going to give you like the 5 photos before your kiss, 5 photos of your kiss, 5 photos after your kiss. That wouldn't make sense.
No.
Let's get the moment right before the kiss and then a little celebration.
And that'll be good enough.
That's what you need.
Yeah.
You know?
That tells the story more.
Right.
Yeah.
And anything else just becomes, again, watered down, and it takes away from those really important moments.
Yeah. When I tell people that, you know, I had another photographer on who I shoot with a lot, and so tell them how many photos we have at the end of a wedding. And it's not spraying and praying.
Nope.
And I said, typical 8-hour wedding, no first look, no. He said, about 6,000 to 8,000. I said, easy. I said, and that was a first look, 8 to 10.
Yeah.
I said, exactly. You know, and you got to go through all of that stuff.
Yep.
You know, and when you experience, you can make those decisions pretty quick of what stays in, and then you may be down to 5,000. And then you got to do it again, you know? So, but yeah, I get it, man. I definitely
like
get
every
it.
couple, like you make all these decisions for your wedding day.
Yeah.
But you're making, let's say, a handful on any day, right? And let's say maybe you're making a total of maybe 100 something or a few hundred throughout the entire wedding planning journey.
Yep.
We're sitting down looking at 10,000.
Yes.
Like,
it's a lot.
That's a lot of decisions to make.
Yeah, man.
And granted, like I love Aftershoot. You know, I love all of the culling software. And they do help. Absolutely.
But they don't do it like us, though.
But we still have to have that human element to
Yes.
look through and be like, okay, is this one good? Let's compare it to this one.
Yep.
You know, because AI is wonderful, but it doesn't get it perfect.
No.
And it never will because of that human element.
Yeah.
And because we were actually there on your day. So we still have to go through and look at it no matter what.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it has cut down on the time, but the time investment is definitely still there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, man. It's a lot.
And truly,
man.
the thing is, it always will be.
Yeah.
It's, you know, I always say like wedding days are about people.
Yeah.
And therefore people have to check people. Therefore, like we have to always be taking a look at our work to make sure that the human element is always there.
That's
because otherwise, like AI it can try to read it and it can get pretty close.
Yeah.
But there's just some things that it just can't quite understand.
Yep.
Like when somebody has their eyes shut and like they're just like holding themselves like that, most of the time it's going to say, oh, eyes closed, photo out.
But that's a great moment. Yeah,
right?
that's a great moment. Yeah.
You know, or there could be another one where it's just like, oh, it must be a great moment. And it calls it in. And you're like, no, they were just blinking there. So, you know, it's never going to get it perfect. And therefore, we always have to keep that human element for sure.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you coming on, man.
That flew by.
Man, you gave a lot of great insight. This is going to be an awesome episode, man. I'm telling you right now.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
But I want you to let everybody know where they can find SMJ Photography. All the places where they can find you. I want them to be able to.
Oh, it's easy too.
If they want to hire you, I want them to be able to find you just like that. So tell the listeners, that's your camera right there. Just tell all the listeners where they can find SMJ.
All right, you can find me at smjphotography.net. Guy with the .com, how dare you? Tried getting it, but I can't. That was before .co came out. I'd probably take that too. Don't go and steal that one now. And at SMJ Photo on Instagram. Okay. So that's it. That's where I am.
Cool. Sweet, man. I like it. So y'all know where to find him at. My man Scott right here. Great guy. Lots of awards that he really don't, get that excited about, but they just come, I
get excited about for you. That's what I care about.
So you want to hire him, you know exactly where to find him at. Great guy. For the photographers out there, he got a mastermind class, a workshop that he does that looks great. You can see his work all online. He's a great photographer. This will be on YouTube as a video. It'll also be on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts is not around anymore.
Subscribe.
So yeah, make sure you subscribe. Subscribe to The Wedding Dreams Unveiled. You can subscribe to Scott. But it's a lot that we covered here, and I'm sure that it'll be great for photographers, and it'll be more so great for couples. So until next time, thank you for listening, and we'll see you around. Peace out.